ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वतीदेवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामने गौरतुसे नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So, we welcome everyone for today's discussion on Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So, we are discussing from chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita and verse number 29. Asyaryavat pashyati kashidenam Asyaryavat vadati tathaiva chanya Asyaryavat chainamanya srunoti Shrutvapi enam vedana chaiva kasyet. Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. So we discussed about this verse yesterday, little bit. Asharyavat means amazing. Pashyati sees Kashyat. Some people look at the soul very amazingly, and some people they describe it very amazingly, and there are others who hear about it very amazingly. Asharyavaccha anya enam anya shrunoti, hears of the soul very amazingly. Why it is so? Because the soul is very amazing. The soul has very amazing nature. Uh, uh, this Apart from this material world, material elements, no material elements, material object can actually stand in front of the transcendental qualities, the nature of the spirit soul. There is nothing like this. That's why definitely sure enough, the characteristics or nature of the soul is very amazing. There is no doubt about it. Because even if we consider the size of the soul, all material objects have some size, some kind of size, some size is there. Even the smallest atom has some parameter. You can measure it. It may be in nanometer or smaller than the nanometer, but it has the size. But the size of soul is even the smaller than the smallest material atom. The soul size is smaller than the smallest material atom. That's why it's amazing. Uh, And that is smallest is smaller than the smallest particle, smaller than the smallest material particle, known as soul, is so powerful that it can operate even the biggest size of material body, biggest having the biggest size. Just like elephant has such big, huge size, and even bigger than elephants, there are fishes, whale fishes, timingila. There are timingila fishes in the ocean which can swallow the whales. Whales can swallow the big animals, and timingila can swallow whales. And timingila also has that is smaller than the smallest particle size, the spirit soul. And that presence of that spirit soul is operating the entire body of the Mingula fish. Just imagine. That's why it is so amazing. It's really amazing. This is about the size. And then the soul's characteristics. It cannot be cut, it cannot be burnt, it cannot be changed. It remains as it is. It cannot be harmed. uh, and nothing, no changes can be made in the soul. That's why it's amazing. That's why Krishna is telling that those, anyone who look upon the soul, who describe about the soul, or who hears about the soul, they all become very amazed. That is the wonderful nature of the spirit soul. And that we are. We should be happy to know this. Or we may be amazed also to know this. That, oh, we are so amazing. Just like some people who are very dynamic, who have very dynamic personality, where they can very wonderfully, they can act, and who are very intelligent, very logical, reasonable, or very enthusiastic. So people say he is very dynamic person. He is very amazing personality. He has very amazing personality. But every one of us have amazing personality because we are a spirit soul. The spirit soul has very amazing personality. What is the amazement that we discussed already? So spirit soul has amazing personality, and Krishna is telling this. Because Krishna knows very well. But the most amazing part of this sloka is the fourth one, which we discussed yesterday. Shutva penam vedana chaiva kasyap. Even though many people hear about the soul's amazing characteristics, but still they cannot understand it or they cannot follow it. And that is the amazing point in this verse. Although the spirit soul is everything, the most important, or rather we can say the only important element within this body, and it has so amazing characteristics. It is so very wonderful, beautiful, and eternal. But still, even after knowing this, if somebody gets attracted towards material object, material things, then that is actually a great amazement. That is amazing thing. So Krishna is telling in this verse like this. So since Gita Upanishad is largely based on the principles of the Upanishads, it is not surprising to also find this passage in the Katha Upanishad. So Bhagavad Gita is also an Upanishad. So it is known as the Gita Upanishad. And principles mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita are also found in Upanishads, other Upanishads. So in the Katha Upanishad also, the same kind of verse appears. Shravana Shravanaya api bahubhir na labhya shanvantu api bahavo yamna vidyu आश्चर्यवक्ता कुशलवस्य लब्धा आश्चर्यवस्य ज्ञाता कुशलानुशिष्टः. The same, the meaning is almost the same. This verse from Kathopanishad. The fact that the atomic soul is within the body of a gigantic animal, in the body of a gigantic banyan tree, and also in the microbic germs, millions and millions of which occupy only an inch of space, is certainly very amazing. If you just uh, ponder about this one single statement, we will become amazed. The same spirit soul, there is no difference. The same is smallest, smaller than the smallest element, the same spirit soul uh, operates or directs the body of a gigantic animal, body of a gigantic banyan tree. And the same smaller than smallest soul is present in the body of many millions and billions of microbic germs, bacteria, viruses, which occupy only an inch of space. So is it not very amazing? This is very amazing. Certainly it is very amazing. So men with a poor fund of knowledge and men who are not austere cannot understand the wonders of the individual. Atomic is part of a spirit. Even though it is explained by the greatest authority of knowledge, who imparted lessons even to Brahma, the first living being in the universe. But the amazing nature of the soul cannot attract The persons who have poor fund of knowledge. Poor fund of knowledge means who have very meager knowledge, very cheap knowledge, or incomplete knowledge, imperfect knowledge, uh, or the persons who are not very austere. The more a person is engaged in activities of sense gratification, the more he cannot be amazed by the knowledge of spirit soul. That means he cannot become serious. He cannot take it seriously. Otherwise, elsewhere Srila Prabhupada writes, if one can understand this much only, that I am not this body, I am a spirit soul, and spirit soul belongs to the world which is never destroyed. That information itself is so brilliant information that it should give immense wonder or amazement or happiness to us. But because of sinful activities, sinful tendencies, because of unclean heart, or or because of not performing austerities, proper austerity, lack of austerity, people cannot understand this, cannot appreciate this knowledge. Although this is such a great transcendental knowledge, everyone is everyone is entangled in bodily consciousness, thinking oneself to be body and getting attracted towards material things, material objects of this material world, material people. Uh, so they should become very amazed just to understand that whole life I am attached to this body and things and people connected with this body, but actually I'm not this body. I do not at all belong to this material world. So why should I be so much attached to anyone of this material world, anything of this material world? So this knowledge is not awakened in the heart of a person who is not austere. And not austere means who is involved in business of sense gratification. That's why it's very necessary in order to understand the knowledge of philosophy of Bhagavad Gita perfectly, properly. One has to become free from all kinds of sinful tendencies. One's life should be full of austerities. Full of austerities doesn't mean that one's life will be miserable life. No, austerity doesn't only mean the miseries or the struggle. No, austerity. The real meaning of austerity is that one one is able to control the mind and senses and situate oneself properly on the spiritual platform. In order to do that, whatever is required to be done, that is known as austerity. So, this knowledge of the spirit soul has been imparted by the Supreme Spirit Soul, Supreme Lord, even to the Brahma, the first living being in the universe, in the beginning of the creation. Owing to a gross material conception of things, most men in this age cannot imagine how such a small particle can become both so great and so small. Because of gross material conception of people in general, cannot even think of the amazing nature of the soul. They cannot even understand or accept or even logically appreciate that we are different from this gross material body. We are spiritual. For a person who is affected with gross material conception of life, material conception of life, Dehatma Buddhi, also known as Dehatma Buddhi. One who is too much attached, too much affected with the bodily concept of life, Dehatma Buddhi. For him, it is practically impossible to understand that the that there exists a smallest particle, spiritual particle, which operates our entire body. It's very difficult. So men look at the soul proper as wonderful either by constitution or by description. That's why they look at the soul very wonderfully because they cannot appreciate its functioning. Illusioned by the material energy, people are so engrossed in subject matters for sense gratification that they have very little time to understand the question of self understanding. Even though it is a fact that without this self understanding, all activities result in ultimate defeat in the struggle for existence. So, because of being put into the illusion created by Maya, material energy, most of the people, population, especially in this age of Kali, are engrossed or are affected with the desire for self gratification. So they have very little understanding, little time even to understand about themselves. Uh, and although this is a fact that without understanding about the self, all the activities are actually useless and results only in the defeat in the struggle for existence. Perhaps they have no idea that one must think of the soul and thus make a solution to the material miseries. They have no idea. So what to speak of people in general, those who haven't heard even once or who haven't even read once the knowledge of the spiritual knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes even those who are devotees, not properly situated on a spiritual platform, those who are supposed to have the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita perfectly, they also get bewildered because of material attachment, thinking material things to be their own, material attachments, material lust to be love. In this way, they become illusion, uh, being unable to distinguish between the material life and the spiritual life, material things and the spirit soul. So some people who are inclined to hear about the soul may be attending lectures in good association. But sometimes, owing to ignorance, they are misguided by acceptance of the super soul and the atomic soul as one without distinction of. So there are many people who are unfortunate even to know, understand, and to have faith that there is a spirit soul. But there are few fortunate people who are inclined, who have the desire to know about the soul, but uh, they get misguided by Mayavad misconception, and they start accepting that the super soul and the atomic soul, we are one and the same. So this is another kind of illusion. It is very difficult. That is why it is very difficult to find a man who perfectly understands the position of the super soul, the atomic soul, their respective functions and relationships, and all other major and minor details. Um, that is why it is very difficult to find a person who perfectly knows, understands all the minor and major details about the spirit soul, super soul. That's why it is very wonderful, Ashar. And it is still more difficult to find a man who has actually derived full benefit from the knowledge of the soul and who is able to describe the position of the soul in different aspects. And further, it is more difficult to find a person who has actually uh, not just understood the difference or functions of the atomic soul and super soul, but who has derived the full benefit from this knowledge and who is acting on that platform and who is able to describe the characteristics of the soul in different aspects in true terms. It is still difficult. But if somehow or other one is able to understand the subject matter of the soul, then one's life is. But if somehow or other one can understand this, come to the proper understanding about the subject matter of the spirit soul, then surely his life will be successful because he will come to the perfect understanding that I am an eternal servant of Krishna and I am meant only to serve him, to develop complete love for him. And in this way, terminate my material existence and become free from the cycle of birth and death. That is the perfection stage of life. And this is very rare to find. It is very rare to find. person who has achieved this plan. But the easiest process for understanding the subject matter of the self, however, is to accept the statements of the Bhagavad Gita spoken by the greatest authority, Lord Krishna, without being debated by other spirits. So although the subject matter of the spirit soul is very amazing, it's not very easy thing to understand by any ordinary person as well as like any extraordinary person, great rishis, munis, intelligent beings, and scholars, tapasvis, yogis, very difficult to understand clearly. Uh, the subject matter or characteristics of the soul and the super soul and their relationship. But if somebody is fortunate enough to get the direct statement or direct understanding from the greatest authority, Lord Krishna, from Bhagavad Gita, then he is very fortunate. Then he can very easily understand all. But it also requires a great deal of penance and sacrifice either in this life or in the previous ones, before one is able to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of God. Krishna can, however, be known as such by the causeless mercy of the pure devotee and by no other. So, although this is the easiest method by which one can uh, very clearly and very easily understand the most amazing nature of the spirit soul and its relationship with the super soul, and not only just understand and know, but by following the process given here in Bhagavad Gita, one can even realize this and one can act on the platform of a spirit soul. This is very easy by if somebody is fortunate enough to accept Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead and his words in the Bhagavad Gita as it is, then it's possible. But even to come to this platform, it requires great deal of penance and austerity. Not everyone can so easily accept Krishna as the supreme personality of God. In his previous life, he must have executed great austerities. Krishna says, confirms this in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhaunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sridurlabha. After many births of austerities, one actually comes to the platform of fully understanding me and in this way fully surrendering unto me. And samahatma sudurlabha. Such kind of great soul is very rare to find. That Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita. But another point is, even if somebody who has not executed so much austerity and penance in past life, but if he is fortunate enough to meet uh, a pure devotee, very exalted devotee of the Supreme Lord, then by his mercy alone, he can also come to this platform of perfectly understanding the nature of the spirit soul, and it is possible. Okay, with this, we'll stop this verse. If you have any questions, you can ask. Hare Krishna.
प्रभु जी, मुझे डाउट है, थोड़ा कंफ्यूजन है कि हम सोल हैं और माइनर साइज होती है एकदम सोल की, तो मतलब हमारी स्पिरिचुअल बॉडी ऑलरेडी प्रेजेंट है वैकुंठ में, या फिर हमारे हाथ पैर है ही नहीं, क्या है? मतलब समझा नहीं मुझे।
Actually, we do not require to understand this subject matter right now because it's very complicated. Nobody exactly knows whether our spiritual body is already there in the spiritual world, our spiritual position is already there, or in this material world, by performing devotional service, we develop the spiritual body. It's very complicated subject matter. The only thing we know, or we must know, we should follow how to get out of this material world. And after one has crossed this material existence, by the mercy of Krishna, according to his bhava, attitude, and his qualification, he will be situated in proper spiritual platform. That is for sure. So Krishna will take care of rest of the things. Just like a student
हाँ।
who is preparing for an examination. So his only concern should be he should prepare nicely for the examination. After the examination, how he is going to get the college and how uh, he will be taught so that he can become a very nice engineer or doctor. That is the subject matter of further after examination. That when he will get admitted into the college, the teachers and the process will help him to understand all these things. Okay, similarly, at present, we just require to know how to get out of the entanglement of material existence.
वो निराकारवादी वाला कॉन्सेप्ट है ना, वो मुझे थोड़ा लगने लगता है। इसलिए मैं कंफर्म कर रही थी एक बारी कि स्पिरिचुअल बॉडी होती है ना,
Yes, the spiritual body
प्रेजेंट
is
होती
there.
है ना।
In the scriptures, we have many proofs, many great souls who executed devotional service and then they attained the spiritual perfection and they got spiritual bodies. And eternally with that, with their spiritual body, they are serving Krishna. There is description of Vaikuntha planets. So many associates are there. So all these descriptions are there. So it's not false. Narad Muni got his spiritual body. There are many examples. So we follow scriptures. We do not wish to concoct anything. And this Mayavad misconception, Nirakarvad, this is a concocted philosophy. This is generated within the fertile brain of you, this pupil. But the existence of the spiritual world, Vaikuntha planets and spiritual body, that is the fact that is given mentioned in the scriptures. It is not imagination of some of the followers of Vaishnavism. So this is a fact. Even Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, Yad Gatva na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. Mama dhama. That means there is a word of Krishna, after attaining which one never returns to this material world. Krishna is confirmed also in the Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavatam, there are many verses. In Brahma Samhita, there are many verses. Chinta Mani Prakara Sadma Shukalpa Vriksha Lakshavrite Susurabhira Vipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasrasata Sambhrama Sevyamanam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajam. That abode of the Supreme Lord Krishna, known as Golok Vrindavan, Golokam, Golokam iti Yam. That is also mentioned from the name of the abode of the Supreme Lord Krishna. So that abode of the Supreme Lord, known as Golok Vrindavan, the palaces or buildings are made up of Chintamani Prakar. Prakar means stone. Chintamani stone, Sadmashu. Sadmashu means Sadma means houses and buildings are made up of Chintamani stone, not ordinary stones, not these bricks. Chintamani stone. Sarvasu Kalpavriksha, Lakshavrite, Suragiravi. There are many millions and millions of wish fulfilling cows and trees, desire fulfilling trees, and many millions of Lakshmis, goddesses of fortune, very eagerly, enthusiastically, with full attention, serving the Supreme Lord Govinda. So, this is all fact mentioned in the scripture. Yes, any other question?
हाँ, ये चैतन्य चरितमृत में आप बता चुके हैं, डिस्क्रिप्शन पढ़ा था हम लोगों ने। अ, पता नहीं, थोड़ा डाउट आ रहा था मुझे। मुझे यकीन है बट पता नहीं क्या था ये। और प्रभु जी, मेरा एक और क्वेश्चन है। आप कहते हैं कि मटेरियल अटैचमेंट से फ्री होने का कम से कम डिजायर रखना चाहिए, तो वो फ्री होने के लिए डिजायर रखना बस काफी नहीं है मेरे हिसाब से, जो ये श्लोक चल रहा है तो।
काफी नहीं है, but it's a good beginning. At least, first of all, we should have desire to become free from material entanglement. Then only we will be inspired to take up the struggle, hard struggle to become free from material attachments. Because it's not so easy thing to become free from Maya, material attachments. It requires a great determination and great austerity has to be performed. So who can perform this great austerity and determination? Who can have? One who desires to get out of these material attachments. If somebody doesn't desire, then there's no possibility only. You cannot execute the great austerity. One who desires to become a collector, one who has the desire that people should know that I am a collector, my name and fame should be spread. One who develops desire, such kind of desire, then only he can study day and night together, 15 hours, 18 hours, and do such kind of austerity to crack the exam. Otherwise, uh, if if a person like me, if you tell that you appear in UPSC exam and crack it, it's not possible because I have no desire. I know this third class. What is the use? Even if I become a collector, what is the use? After 20, 25 years, 30 years, I will be thrown out of the position, uh, retirement. And after 10, 15 years, death. At the time of death, everything is finished. So because of spiritual knowledge, I cannot get the inspiration to prepare for UPSC exam. That's why I did not prepare. My father was forcing me so much because one of my friend who was not topper like me, he got third rank. I was in first rank. So he prepared for 3 years, I think 3 years, and he got selected. UPSC All India rank, he got almost 190 rank he got. So when my father heard this, he became very, very furious and he said, you should also have prepared. You should have gotten more rank like this. He was telling. Uh, But I was convinced because I read Bhagavad Gita. I understood Bhagavad Gita. What is this nonsense? Just to get this insignificant position, material position, with no use, impermanent, temporary position. Why should I waste so much of my time, valuable time? Instead, I can chant Hare Krishna and purify my consciousness. Rather, doing all these things, my consciousness will become more polluted. Every time when I'll sit with the book to prepare for UPSC examination, I will get newer and desire. This pollution will increase within the heart that I want to become a collector. I want to become famous. People should salute me. So this is contamination of the heart. So I clearly understood. So how can an inspiration to uh, crack this exam will appear in my heart? Anyway, I'm just giving this example just to illustrate the point that if you have the desire to become something, to become free from the material attachments, then only you can take up the challenge or austerities or struggle which is involved in getting freedom from this material attachment. Otherwise, it's not possible. It cannot. How can you chant daily 80 rounds? I'm trying my best. Not every day I'm able to do because of last 3, 4 days fever and all. But I managed somehow or other to chant 50, 60. But it's not very easy thing that whole day one can chant. 16 rounds is impossible. But who can chant? The proof is that if somebody is, in spite of all the busy schedule and all the things in his life, if somebody is able to daily chant 16 rounds and somebody is able to follow four regulative principles nicely, that means he is convinced of the philosophy. He has understood the essence of Bhagavad Gita. That is the proof. And we are trying our best to bring you to that platform, to that point. That's why we are trying, we are giving so many classes, we are speaking so much. Otherwise, the philosophy is very simple. But in order to get convinced, it requires uh, so much hearing. And another point, apart from hearing so much, another point is that our heart should be clean, pious. Only pious souls, those who are free from sinful tendencies, they can only accept or understand the philosophy properly. But the point is that the more we hear, these two things are done simultaneously. One thing is the heart is getting cleaned, we become purified, and we attain piety. Shravanvatam Sakatha Krishna Punya Sravana Kirtana. The more if you just keep hearing attentively, so Punya Sravan, you will attain the piety, you will get the pious credit. And with the as the pious credit increases, so the point will come when you will become fully convinced, yes, this is the true philosophy. So I must uh, be determined to perfect my life in this life only. Okay, we have only 2 minutes. Any other question? Hare Krishna.